Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined finally after a 3-year courtship by Megan Levers, athletic director at Overfelt High School in San Jose. And I think there's a couple of like a first name and a middle name on that school, but she can let us know about that. But anyway, Coach, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's dive in now. So, take us through your background as a coach, as an athletic director. How did we get here? 20, 25, 26. Where did it all begin? Take us back to the youthful, energetic youngster that didn't see themselves in this space and walk us up to the present and now.
Yeah, I went to undergrad. I'm originally from the San Fernando Valley, LA area. I came up to school at Cal State East Bay to get my undergrad in athletic training, but it wasn't an accredited school, so I had to switch in my option in kinesiology. My mom worked at a middle school and she worked with my middle school PE teacher, and he was like, "Hey, just come and observe me." And I loved it. And so I said, okay, I'll change my option to PE teaching under kinesiology. And then I went to my credential program at San Jose State, which brought me to San Jose. And one of the girls in my cohort, we became good friends. We started living together, and she got one of those paid internships at William C. Overfelt High School. And okay. So she got the internship at WCO, and we were visiting a friend in San Mateo, and she said, "Hey, on the way, can we stop at St. Ignatius and or St. Francis, sorry, and our football team made playoffs." Okay, sure. I've never been to a high school playoff game. My high school football team was horrible. So never experienced that. Sure, let's go. And I was talking to one of the teachers that she introduced me to, and they said, "Hey, do you know anybody that likes soccer that can coach JV? I need a job. I'll do it." So that's how I started. I randomly got it while I was student teaching, and then 14 years later, I'm still here.
Love that. All right, so you mentioned Cal State East Bay, and given that math and that timeline, you actually went to East Bay, not Cal State Hayward, like when I was growing up.
Yes, I was my friend was there, and he took so long that his applicant or his graduation certificate said Cal State Hayward, but all of ours said East Bay.
There you go. Yep. I grew up in Alameda, and Cal State Hayward was what it once was, and then it became East Bay. And
Yeah.
I don't remember what year that was, but the rebranding is what it is. All right, so JV soccer, that's where we got our start. Take us through
Yeah.
that. 14 years ago, you started as JV soccer. What does that progress into, and how do you end up in the ADC?
So the first year, 2012, 2013, I had a great group of kids. We still had our JV games on the grass. We had them side by side, so JV and varsity played at the same time. And the varsity coach was heading out. She had another job, so she was asking me, "Hey, do you want to take over next season?" Sure. I honestly had no idea what it entailed of being a high school coach because I had only ever done club, and I did high school, but I had knee injuries throughout high school. So I didn't really play on the soccer team as much as I probably would have if I wasn't injured. So I don't really know that aspect of it. It was a big eye opener with all the paperwork and all the meetings that you got to go to and the different trainings, and you have to wait until after school and all these things. So it was definitely new, but I loved it the first time I tried it.
And so you become the head coach. What year was that? How long do you do that?
Um,
How do you end up being the AD?
so 2013, 2014, I took over as head coach. I got my first actual teaching job, like full time and not just subbing, in 2015, I believe. But I wasn't at Overfelt. They didn't have an opening position for PE teaching. So I was at a local elementary district doing adaptive PE and PE for the district. Then I got a job at a neighboring high school for 2 years. Then I went to another elementary middle school district doing adaptive PE. And finally, somebody retired at Overfelt halfway through the year. And so I snatched that up real quick. And then once I got here in January 2019, I know it's been like this whole crazy journey. 2019, our boys athletic director, something happened. So our principal had to take over, and he has known me for this whole time. He's like, "Hey, do you want to do it? I can train you from what I know." I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great. That's what I've always wanted to do." So that's how I got into that. And here we are today.
So talk about that for just a second. You said boys athletic director. Does your school have both? Was that the model then? What does it look like now? That's new to me.
Yes. So we have two athletic directors, boys athletic director and girls. It has always been like that as well as I know. Not every school has to have it. So in our district, there's 11 high schools in our district. Only 4 high schools have 2 athletic directors. Everybody else has 1. So in our district, we're not a full-time athletic director. We're only 0.4.
Oh man, I'm about to open a can of worms. But if they combine the two, you would be. One person would be in theory.
Yeah. So I only get 1 prep period for my athletic director, and she gets the other one. So if I took over both, then I would have 2 prep periods.
Okay. So technically, you said you came in as the boys athletic director. Are you still the boys athletic director? And
Yeah.
he's the
So
girls athletic director.
yes,
I
I'm the
love
boys
that. Okay.
athletic director. She's the girls my co-worker. She's a PE teacher too. She's a girls athletic director. She used to coach wrestling, and I coach girls soccer. So during winter, the two of us were like chickens with our heads cut off with
Yeah.
all the coaching and athletic director stuff at the same time.
Okay, so talk to me about this model. How do you divide labor? What does it look like? Is it legit just like girls, boys? There's no crossover. I would love to learn more.
Yeah, so we actually work really well together. She is not technically savvy. So I do all of the tech stuff. So I've made the spreadsheets for how we get our grades for all of our students, how we input everything on our school calendar, I use Gipper for any announcements, things like that. So anything digital is my domain. And then she does the paperwork stuff, like the club charter, fundraisers, handing all that in. So she double checks that, and I make sure all of the online stuff works. And then just if we need help, we usually just talk to each other.
Okay, so let's go back in time here. So I'm pivoting from JV to head soccer coach, and we'll
Mhm.
lean into that for a minute. And you mentioned I had to figure all this out because I never really had any experience with high school, even as an athlete. And this whole deal was created as a digital database of mentorship, right? So it's okay, you get a new coach, you hire one, let's say for spring track and field, and they're as green as you were at the time. How are we providing
Mhm.
resources to them that it's like, hey, this is what you need to figure out right now. So if you can go back in time, 2013, it looks like, what did you realize right away that you needed to figure out? And what are the things that are like, oh, wow, yeah, if I had a do-over, I need to tackle 1, 2, 3 in that order. What would you say those were, and how did you navigate those at the time? And what would you do differently if you could now?
The biggest thing is the paperwork. As a head coach, you're not just doing practices, you have to fundraise, you have to keep inventory for your uniforms, your equipment. You have to make sure that there's a rotation of good uniforms for varsity and JV. You're not just doing varsity, you're doing a whole program. How are you building up that program? How are you communicating with the JV coach? So a lot of different things. And I think transitioning from JV to varsity coach and then doing varsity coach for so long and then starting teaching at the school and then becoming AD so quickly after that has really helped in the AD aspect because I know from a coaching aspect what I need from my AD. to be successful.
Perfect. So tell me that. So now, same question. You're stepping, not 2019, great year to do it. COVID. How? What did you realize you had to figure out that's different from being a coach? And how did you use that experience as a coach to inform like your approach as an athletic director? How would you advise people making that jump?
So the biggest thing for me is that knowing to listen to your coaches, but you don't have to take all of their opinions because there are a lot of conflicting ones and there are a lot of different personalities, just like you would have on your team, on my soccer team. So you have to figure out the strengths and the weaknesses of certain coaches. We just had our football coach just retired after 11 years. His strength is not in technology. So anytime we knew that we were going to go to playoffs, I would make sure that I did that instead of him doing me reminding him to do it because it was never going to happen. So knowing those strengths, and then like my boys basketball coach, he's an on-campus class monitor, campus monitor. So I can easily talk to him and say, you have access to all the kids. Can you help me do your input, your grades? That's one less thing on ours. And then that way you can actually see your kids' grades as well.
And as you get a look behind the curtain, right? You're coaching, you're doing this thing, you're running your program, and then you become the AD and you get to look and see what's going on back there. What did you realize there that was like, oh, that's interesting. I never would have considered that. Or that's silly. Why are we doing that? Talk a little bit about some of those challenges as you step into this seat and you're pressed with, do I observe? Do I make change? What's important? What's urgent? Talk a little bit about what that transition was like and how over, what are we, 6 years now, 7 years? We're figuring out how to move the needle a little bit.
Really pushing for what I want in our program. I pushed hard for Gipper. Yes, we have Canva, but Gipper is based solely towards athletics. And it's easy for kids to use, for coaches to use for their posts. It makes it a lot more. I upload our Overfelt branding into it. So I know that our colors are in there. So it's not just some random colors. We don't make it look like another high school with too much red or too much, or they put black in there. Like black is not our color. And then also being able to help with fundraising ideas. A lot of the things that we have done is like merchandise, but in the past, it's only been for 2 weeks, which is ridiculous to me. You should be able to buy baseball stuff whenever you want to buy baseball stuff. You should be able to buy football gear whenever you want to buy football gear. It shouldn't be competing against each other. It should be we're all supporting our athletics, so it should be year round. So really trying to push for that is was one of my big things.
So how'd you solve that, right? Because a lot of it has to do with vendor platforms and the idea of a perpetual store versus a flash store and really about the diversity of offerings. So how'd you solve that?
I haven't quite solved it. It's a long, drawn out process. I feel like it every time I take a step forward, it's two steps back. So really trying to figure that out. But we finally got our online fundraisers figured out for our district. So we have a certain thing that group of companies that our athletes can go to or our coaches can pick from. And then trying to figure out what we want our store to look like if we want to do one big store and then just have individual things or individual stores for individual sports. So still trying to figure that out, but it's a lot more of the online one because the kids are parents nowadays just want to give you money instead of I don't need all the stuff.
Interesting. So every district's different, right? Every school site is different. And I'm curious how funding works in your district. So if you were to look at your budget line item, one of my buddies who just took over a school, he's like, yeah, my budget is zero. I'm like, huh? Yeah, I get nothing. I got to figure this whole thing out. What does your situation look like? How do you navigate those challenges? What are the things that are actually really positive that you get to deal with? And what are the things that you're perpetually banging your head against the wall in regards to budgeting, funding, all that type stuff?
Yeah, our we don't. Our principal gets, I think it's like $2,000 for athletics, which is like wah wah, nothing. And anytime that we meet with our district ADs, we meet with the head of HR and one of our technicians that clears all of our coaches. So we go over all of these things that we have, and every single time we're like, okay, we'd like this because every single school needs huddle. Can we get a district wide huddle? They come up with, oh, your principal will, it's in, you can use it out of your principal's budget, but we don't, we have $2,000. That's it. And so they want us to convince our principals to use their general funds for that when we have so many other general funds. So it's a whole mess.
So how do you fund athletics? Because you're not doing anything with 2 grand. That doesn't even cover
No.
referees for a single sport.
Yeah. So fortunately, right now, our district pays our official fees. It will go back to us being in charge of our official fees, I'm pretty sure next year or the year after. But for right now, we use our gate fees to pay for some equipment or uniforms that have been out every 3 years. We want to try and pay for uniforms for each sport. If each sport wants a new uniform every year, they have to fundraise for that.
Okay, so individual fundraisers by sport, athletic department is dependent on gate revenue. The district pays officials, the district's paying your stipends. So ultimately, any tertiary stuff, you got to figure out how to go get it done. So if you want new equipment in regards to football tackling sled, the football team's got to raise that.
Yes.
Interesting.
And we also don't have any money for buses from our district. So football is the only one that really gets buses, but they fundraise for those buses.
And so transportation wise, how do kids get to games? Parent drivers?
Yep.
Interesting. And that's been the case since you got there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to go into
Yeah.
weeds on that. I'm
Yeah.
curious. We'll have an offline conversation about that. But okay, let's go back to some more coaching specific things. What would you say now you're 7 years in, you're observing all your programs every day. What's the best thing that you see in your program that has the largest ripple effect on culture? And specifically, it's okay, I'm watching the tennis team and they do this thing that like I'm taking and handing it to every other one of my coaches because it's so transformational. And I'm not talking about like how they teach somebody to hit the ball, but just kind of some cultural pieces that go beyond the sport. Is there anything you can name or even maybe something you do that you brought along with you that you'd like to offer other people?
Yeah. As a department, as an athletics department, we created before COVID a 2.5 academic, like GPA. So if they were under a 2.5, then they were on academic probation and they had to get signatures every week. If they didn't give it to us, then they would not play in that game that week. So that combated our ineligibility drastically. We haven't done it for a couple years, but for those first couple years, the kids really took to it. And now we are the school that gives the least amount of probation, academic probation. So that means if they're under 2.0, we give them like an academic probation for something. We maybe give out three, maybe a year, but barely.
And just to be clear, the baseline standard is 2 point. So
Mm-hmm.
by raising it to 2.5, there are people that would push back and say that would eliminate a bunch of athletes from your program. And it sounds like you saw the opposite effect.
Yeah, we have combated now to where we lose like half of our football team from ineligibility to not losing any because they know what the standards are. So really trying to make sure that's the biggest sport. That's the one that's the worst. So there's maybe one or two, and then the next grading period, we barely lose any. It's usually like the freshmen because they're not used to it.
Why do you think that's the case? That when you actually raise the level of expectation, you have less kids falling short? Is there any data that you've been able to like be like, wow, this is why, or is it just coincidence?
I think it's coincidence and why our school is really big on getting our kids A through G ready. So we have an East Side Promise to sit through San Jose State, where every school in our district, if you get a 2.5 and have A through G, and you apply to San Jose State, you automatically get in. Making sure that whether or not they want to go to college, having them be prepared for after high school, I think that's been a really big change once we got that East Side Promise. It's really helped our kids with their grades and staying on top of that and being able to do sports and then promoting the multi-sport thing. So if you're in a fall, winter, and spring, you have to have grades all the time. So really pushing that through.
I love that you went there. That's my soapbox. So, what percentage of your athletes would you say are playing more than one sport?
We are back to like pre-COVID numbers,
Mhm.
and I want to say, we have about 25% that are three sport athletes. Yeah.
Love that.
And I
Love that.
mean, the numbers that we get out, again, this is my 14th year. I have never cut anybody for soccer. This is the first year I will have to, because I had 35 girls no, 45 girls come out for JV and 31 for varsity for soccer. I've never had that.
How have you found success getting kids to be multi-sport athletes in an era and society that pushes sport specialization? I'm always curious what other people are doing. We've had a ton of success as well because our kids have to participate in the co-curricular. So like I just have to steer them into a particular endeavor. But that's not what society's telling them. So how have you pushed back on that, held your line, got them to buy in? Talk a little bit about strategies for others.
It's really the buy-in from the coaches. The coaches being like, if you didn't make this team, go out for the other sport. So if you don't make girls volleyball in the fall, go out for girls tennis or cross country. So it's keeping them in that realm of sports. And then we also have a lot of coaches that coach multiple sports. One coach coaches girls flag football, boys varsity basketball, and boys tennis. And he's our campus monitor. So he's always on campus. Another one does flag football and baseball. And then a lot of our coaches are grads from this school. So kids really see, okay, they're giving back to us. They have pride in what we're doing here in our school. Maybe I should go out for more things.
And then I'm assuming if you're saying it's really the buy-in from coaches, when their season ends, they're not like, hey, we got to get back and play more tennis. It's no, go play basketball.
Yes, 100%. It is, if they are specialized, the amount of times that we say, football players, you need to go do wrestling and then go do track. So get stronger. If you're not going to do basketball or soccer, go to wrestling. And then you should all be in track and get your speed up. So then you go straight into spring ball and then summer, and then now you're fit for fall.
And does that come up when you are hiring coaches, where it's like you're trying to find mission appropriate people and you got somebody that's coming in going, yeah, we're going to have a year round program. We're going to do this and that. And you're like, yeah, that's not really how we're rolling.
Yeah, that's we've come out of that. A lot of when I first got here coaching, it was a lot of that. There are kids that did not go to other sports and they were purely soccer, they were purely wrestling, they were purely tennis, football, volleyball. They did not go to any other thing. So I think now getting the coaches on board and then the coaches really pushing that message out to our students being multi athletes, and also the more professional athletes saying, hey, you should do multiple sports, is it's huge.
Do you have any data to support? And this is going to be a really weird question. Your success as a program being tied to that participation and your college matriculation athletically being tied to that. Meaning, the more that we get kids to cross train and do multiple things, the better all of our programs have become, and the more kids we've placed in college athletics. And I have the data to support it. Do you have anything on your end that you can point to when kids are like, you know what? If I don't spend the next 9 months playing baseball, then I'm not going to be able to do X.
I don't have data, but I have seen an uptick for our students. I just went to a sophomore night at San Mateo College for two of my students. I went 2 weeks ago, I went to San Jose City for two of my other students doing a sophomore night. We have a ton of kids that go to Evergreen Valley College for soccer, or they go try and go out of state. I've seen a lot more in the past 4 or 5 years of kids wanting to play post high school. And I did see a lot of them were multi-sport athletes.
And what about the overarching success of your teams now that 25% of your kids are three-sport athletes? What are you seeing there relative to when kids were specializing?
I think it gets I don't know about teams because it's always so weird with the rotation of every 4 years of the kids. And then sometimes kids just don't want to play that year and then they come back the next. But I think fan engagement from our students has been a lot of our kids playing multiple sports because they want to go out and support their friends all year round instead of just in the fall or the winter or the spring.
Interesting. Okay. You mentioned you have 11 high schools in your district, correct?
Yes.
You've only been in one place, but I'm curious what that's like. So our biggest district in our area, Salinas, has five. And Jose and Marcus and Brian and Matt and Art, they
Yeah.
meet like every week, and they have this built-in kind of cohort where they can share ideas, right? Like we try to do at the ADA. But what's it like having 11? How does that work? How connected are the schools? How do you use one another as resources? Are you separate? Tell me what that's like.
Yeah, it's pretty separate, honestly. We meet with our BVAL, and then after BVAL, probably a week after, we meet with our district. So we really only meet the same amount of times that we meet with BVAL, which
And
is
that's what, quarterly, or do you meet monthly like we do?
no quarterly. It's after every season. So we'll meet in August. We have one this week. The January one usually gets taken away because nobody needs anything in the middle of winter season. After winter, after fall, spring. So we only meet like 4 times a year.
Is there any demand is not the right word, appetite as an AD yourself to be like, yo, can we get the district ADs together weekly, bi-weekly, monthly to like work together collaboratively to improve things and raise the bar? Or is that just nobody cares?
Honestly, because we're not full time, we're not even part time. We're like half of part time. People are just doing the bare minimum, or if we try and do more, we get shut down from the district. Like our district doesn't pay for CSADA. I have to pay for it because I don't have a class.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna steer away from this for right now. Again,
Yeah.
we could talk offline more, but again, like even when I was at San Juan, we had 9 high schools. When I started my career, we had a district AD. They met semi-regularly, and it was intentionally like, let's at least get everybody on the same page so that when things percolate up to the superintendent, there's an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, we do have a district AD for our section athletic director, and she's supposed to facilitate between the district and us, but we don't meet other than when we meet with HR, and yeah, we
Interesting.
don't meet other than that. I would love to, but honestly, like we don't get
Yeah,
You can't meet like that.
maybe that's your initiative, right? It's just, hey, you
Yeah,
put the word out to your in-house and then you have the mini CCSADA because you guys all are dealing with similar stuff and you're in the same district. But hey, you know what? That's something you can
yeah.
tackle later. So you're overseeing multiple programs. I know technically girls, boys, but is there crossover? Are you sharing supervision of those sports? Or is it legit, hey, you deal with the boys' sports and your partner deals with the girls' sports?
We both try and go to all of the senior nights.
Yeah.
Other than that, we don't. I go to every football game because I also do sports medicine. So
Yep.
I tape up all the football players and I
Yep.
make sure that's there. If there's a big conflict with like our boys soccer, I will make sure that our principal and myself go. If there's a big issue with like our softball, we do have rivals and parents like to church. The girls AD will go to that game, but we don't really have it split up where you go to this one because we're only one prep period, so we don't.
Yeah, no, it's more about
Yeah,
like me getting an understanding of the reach because what I'm always curious about is what have you learned watching other programs? So I coach soccer, right? That's
yeah,
your hat, not mine. I coach basketball, but it's
right.
okay. But I'm also overseeing all these other programs. So what have you stolen from other programs and brought into your soccer program because you get so much more access as the athletic director? What have you been able to glean? Because we're pushing these kids to play multiple sports. We have certain coaches that are coaching multiple sports, right? You're currently coaching soccer, you're doing the athletic training stuff, but it's like, how can you point to something specific that those listening can maybe have their eyes open to, hey, I can go watch something else and get better as a coach. It doesn't have to be my discipline.
Yeah, I think I take off of their interaction with the players, how they do like team bonding things, or how they run their practices. Do they have? Is it all serious, or is it? Do they have a point where they can let the kids be themselves and buy into your program? So I've taken from other coaches like a game ball kind of thing, where at the end of each of my games, I pick a player the first game of not necessarily the best person, but like maybe the best supporter. They did something really well that saved our butt in the game. And then from there, that player picks somebody else the next game. And so not every person, nobody gets it twice. So they have to pick somebody that hasn't been picked. So they're really looking for positives within their team. And it doesn't, one year it was someone that was on the bench. They were just constantly cheering that whole entire game and they didn't let up and they were really positive. They got the game ball. It wasn't somebody that like scored 3 goals.
So interesting. I want to elaborate on that. And I'm processing as you're saying that. So there years ago, there was a concept that was similar to that. You're saying you would pick, okay, Jimmy, hey, I want to acknowledge you for the game. You played great. These are all the things we work on. This is what you did. Great job. All right. That kid gets honored. Next game, you point at Jimmy and you're like, yo, who do you want to celebrate? And they do that. Okay. And that goes throughout the whole season. We did
Mm-hmm.
one year where let's say you celebrated Jimmy and then as soon as you were done with that, Jimmy's responsibility was immediately then to pass on the acknowledgement to somebody else in that moment, right? And so it was
Mm,
like the concept obviously was like the Ubuntu, like we are stronger together, right? And so, yes, I'm going to receive my acknowledgement, but the only reason I was able to be effective was because Ken over here was diving on the ground and doing all the little things. I got to go back in time and figure out what that was, but it's based on what you just described, and
I like that.
it's almost like the next level of it, right? So it's as a
Yeah.
coach, hey, I really want to point out Kobe. She did a great job today. She was leading. She was vocal. She was X. It's boom. And then you give, I think we even had a shirt that was like, we're stronger together or something. I got to call my buddy and ask him. And then they had to then take that and give it away to somebody else for a similar reason.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I got to go back. Good reminder for me to go figure that piece out. All right, I like that. All right, AD hat. What's the best tool you have adopted in the last year that has made your life easier?
Putting everything on Google.
Calendar?
That has been Google Calendar, Google Sheets. I making sure that everything's on like easily accessible from any device because there are some times where I don't have my computer and I just have my phone. So being able to pull something up and do that really quickly. Our grades, everything instead of having separate sheets, we used to have it like on Google Docs, they'd fill it out and then we'd send it to them. Now we have all of our sports on one Google sheet, different tabs, and it's fall, winter, spring. Coaches can only input first name, last name, student ID, grade,
Yep.
level, and then they can see right away. It'll automatically turn red if they're ineligible, and then it'll turn green if they have a 3.5 and above. So with the 3.5 and above, we're trying to do athletic scholar.
Yeah. You've done
Sure.
conditional formatting and things that obviously automatically take care of some of that work for you.
Yeah, one Silver Creek, where I worked before, they used to have shirts. I don't know if they still do it, but they had shirts like different color shirts for the amount of times that you've been a scholar athlete. So if you were a 3-sport athlete for 4 years, you would have 12 different colored shirts. They would go from shirts to long sleeves to sweatshirts. And it would all say like Overfelt Scholar Athlete. So I want to implement that so it's tangible for the kids to see. And then we do announcements now, video announcements. So having that posted up on that saying these amount of kids were scholar athletes during this season.
Nice. Love that. All right, last question. What is something you've most recently changed your mind on? And this is more just a thought exercise in how we constantly challenge our belief system. In this day and age, we're in these polarized echo chambers and we don't get a lot of dissenting voice. And I'm always curious how people are actively challenging their previously held beliefs. So I used to be here, now I'm over here, and it's purposeful, and here's why. So what's something that you've changed your mind on? It doesn't have to be coaching related. It can be just day to day, but in the last, let's call it 6 months to a year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that like you can only control what you can control. That's like the biggest thing. I cannot fret about situation A, B, and C if I have nothing that I can do about it. I can't deal with, I can't do the referees. Like I'm not a referee. I'm not an official. I can't handle that, but I can handle my coaches. So it's really, that had flipped my switch also with coaching. Like I used to try and argue with the official to be like, this is what is happening. And then as an AD, I'm like, what am I doing? Like it's not gonna help. Just, okay, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Cool. All right. And then being able to reflect that to my kids. Like you can only control what you can control.
No doubt. And you see the wristbands.
Yeah. I didn't even see that. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
no, that's been
1,000%.
that's been something I give out to the kids. It's been a mantra of mine forever, and it's every ounce of energy you spend trying to control something you can't is time you're never getting back. So how do you get to the shrug it off and keep it moving phase of your life? I love that. All right, Coach, thanks for being on. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you at our next meeting, and keep fighting a good fight.
Thanks for having me. See you next time.